How do you think Brodie Croft looked today?
Thought he looked like Brodie Croft, but in a better coloured jersey.
Leeds have won back-to-back Rugby League titles. The golden generation finally has its golden fleece. No England game, it seems, is complete without a Ryan Hall try. Jamie Peacock.
Kevin Sinfield.
Rob Burrow.
Danny McGuire.
Jamie Jones Buchanan for Leeds.
It's one of the most popular beards in rugby league.
There aren't many in Super League that can do that.
We just want to be a great friend, and if we can all try and be a bit of a better friend from time to time, I think we have a bit of a better place to live in.
The Lot Pod is kindly sponsored by Fast Signs. Fast Signs are an established family-run business who've been providing businesses around Leeds and West Yorkshire with effective signs and graphics for almost 30 years. Fast Signs are passionate about helping customers make a statement with signs that are eye-catching, effective and delivered fast.
Hello and welcome to the Lot Pod, brought to you by Fast Signs. Thank you for joining us today, whether you're joining us on YouTube, Spotify, or however you listen or watch the podcast. Wherever you are watching the podcast or listening, make sure you either like, subscribe, 5-star rating, all of the above. Your support is greatly appreciated. This is the match review panel for the Challenge Cup exit to Saints, our 4th loss in a row in the Challenge Cup and our 4th first round exit in a row. Joining me this week, producer Chris, how are you?
I'm alright, mate, you?
Yeah, it's sunny. I'm in shorts.
I'm well happy. Out.
I know, it's great. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm well happy it's sunny, so that's all good. And we've also got Sam for his first appearance of the season. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Yeah, good to be back on. I've not been on since the season review last year. So
no, exactly, yeah.
It's been a while.
So before we go into sort of the game on Friday, what's been your impressions of the season so far? And then we'll go into the Challenge Cup.
First 3 weeks, I thought this is promising. I saw little signs there that we were going to play some good rugby and that things were going to be different this year. Last few weeks I feel we've crept back into we might struggle a bit again, so it's a bit 50-50, but I think there's enough signs there to say that we still could do something, but we just need to work on a few things first.
So you mentioned a couple of positives there. Let's go straight into the positives in true Lot Pod fashion for Friday night. I'm struggling, I have to admit, to do one. I did message you, Sam, on Saturday saying I'm glad we're doing this on Sunday because it gives us more time to think about it. Chris, have you got a positive from Friday?
I'm struggling myself. I've spoken to you about it before, but the whole thing was just... Yeah,
it was a weird evening.
From getting drawn against Saints to the build-up to... It's sort of to the weather. So that's, I ain't really got a positive. The only positive you could possibly take out is, we got beat, but bar that Clark try, as defence is still pretty good. They didn't break us down, did they?
Not really, no. We'll come on to that because I think the goal line defence, was pretty good up until right to the very end of the first half. And then a couple of tries were lucky.
My positive of the weekend and the Challenge Cup was I went to Batley yesterday.
Oh, you did, didn't you? Yeah.
It was awesome.
Although I was hoping the positive would be that Batley beat Cass, to be honest, and they were almost there at one point, weren't they?
Yeah, it was freezing, it was windy, I was at the bottom of the hill, I absolutely loved it. It was like proper old school rugby league. But anyway, that's not
true statement of the game to say the positive was going to Batley versus Cass. Sam, what was your positive if you've got one?
I enjoyed it when the Evans opened and the Saints fans got wet. I thought that was really funny.
It's true. Yeah. The positive is all the pissing and moaning about the away end.
Yeah.
I hope they never change it.
So do I. I say this every time when I see fans moaning about it on Twitter or whatever. I'm thinking, I don't want you to enjoy coming to Headingley. I hope you have a miserable time. You might win, but at least you'll be wet.
And as we always say, there is always an option to go in the North Stand. The seats, they're always allocated. So if you're choosing the Western Terrace, that's your own fault.
Exactly. But beyond that, I'm not sure what the positives were.
I think my positive was going to be that it wasn't on BBC One. Or BBC Two, because it wasn't the best compared to the week before, which I thought was a really good contest of rugby. I thought the actual difference in quality was weird. So we've mentioned it already, Chris. I've structured today's podcast, this afternoon's podcast, in sort of sections, because there's not really a lot we can talk about in terms of tries from our perspective or play. So I've sort of tried to break it down in terms of the phase of the evening and how it went down. So the first part I was going to mention was the atmosphere at Headingley, and for me, it felt really weird. I was stood with Duncan and Laurie, not Eddie, he's not here. Duncan and Laurie, and that was really great. In terms of, it was great to have watching a rugby with my mates, but it felt like a pre-season. Like, it didn't feel like an important cup game. Obviously, the crowd was low. It was a bit of a weird night, wasn't it?
Like I said before, the whole build-up to it was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is strange, and it'd been great to get a championship club or something. The clubs should go in a round earlier.
Yeah.
And the lowest placed side should get the home tie. But aside from that, the whole thing was just... in fact, I enjoyed the pre-season games more.
Yeah, it felt a bit chilled. I mean, you two had a choice of seats, didn't you, in the East and South Stand, respectively?
Yeah, I swapped for the second half. So,
so we're talking about we're swapping ends to do it, you see?
Swapped ends at Batley.
You swapped ends at Batley?
Brilliant. It was just... Even if we'd have won...
I mean, to be honest, I even felt the Saints fans were quite quiet. I know they brought quite a good number of them as well, but even then, they didn't feel... I never felt tense at any point, despite the fact we were losing.
They got excited enough to throw vapes on players.
Yeah, but that's Lucky Miller's fault, is that?
Yeah.
Remember that.
The interest in it from all sides felt very forced, I thought, which was strange, because it was... You mentioned the Saints fans. I thought even when they were chanting, it was a bit like, we should probably sing a song here.
Yeah.
Easier for them because they were winning anyway, but... From the South Stand, there was, to be fair, very little to get excited about.
Yeah.
It was flat before the game, flat during the game, and normally, even if you're losing to Saints at home, you stay anyway just because it's that big game, and you want to see it through. But people just, it got to 60 minutes or whenever, probably when Walmsley scored that try, and people went...
He always scores against us, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He's a good player, though, and that try on Friday... The way it was scored, it wasn't even an Alex Walmsley try that we normally consider.
No, it sort of summed the whole... Yeah. It wasn't a good game neither, was it?
No.
Which
and that's
doesn't
what I was
help.
saying the week before against in the league game. Yes, we lost, but I actually thought that was a really good contest of rugby league. Yeah. Whereas Friday it was lacklustre all round, I think, wasn't it, a bit?
Yeah, which is a shame.
And I think part of my strangest feeling of the Friday night was a bit about team selection. So I'm intrigued of the debate between you two, because I know obviously you're a big fan of Rowan Smith. I know, Sam, at the moment you're kind of flirting between whether you are or not. I'm sort of in the between the two of you. So I want to pose a couple of questions throughout the pod, and the first one's really about team selection. I'll ask you first, Sam. What was your interpretation of the Momorowski on the wing, and did you agree with it? And just that before we'll come back onto the bench second. But in terms of Momorowski on the wing, what do you think Rowan was trying to achieve with that, and do you think it was right?
I think the logic behind it, I thought, was quite similar to what he did with Edgell last week, and just because I think he explained after the game that he wanted to have a back in case he needed to shuffle things around. But
so Momorowski on the wing,
so still having Roberts on the bench. Yeah. I mean, so you can still shuffle around. So I kind of thought it's odd, it's weird, but he's done it last week, so it's not a completely new thing. But then again, it was like you've got if you want to just keep the team consistent, and Roberts has been playing there. I don't think he's been doing too much personally, but he's done a decent job in it, like well enough to stay in the side. And if you can put Momorowski back in and then put Martin at second row, that seemed like the obvious option to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure why he decided to go a different route to that. But then again, he does like doing things that are a bit different to the norm, doesn't he? So
I think my interpretation of it, and Chris, I'll ask yours in a second, but was that Roberts got a bit battered the week before, and I think he wanted a bit of size, maybe a bit more experience, and that's why he started Momorowski on the wing. whether it worked, I don't think we can say whether it worked. We could say it didn't work with hindsight because we lost, but also I don't think we didn't really have much of the ball to play with anyway. But do you agree that is what Rowan was trying to do? Was he trying to? He noticed that Roberts got probably bullied a bit last week. He thought, I need someone more experienced, a bit more stronger.
I totally got the Momorowski on the wing thing.
Yeah,
I think it's exactly that. He thought they targeted him. Let's put a solid defender on that wing. He's played wing in the NRL. It's not as if he's, you're putting him somewhere that he's not used to playing. So I totally got that. You could say that it did work. Did the score down? They didn't really target that side, did they?
No, it was the other side, wasn't it?
So, yeah. I mean, obviously it didn't work because we didn't win, but
yeah.
I don't think that's the reason we lost.
No,
if you know what I mean. So I get that. I would like to see him back partnering Hanley.
Yeah. And that's probably the bit I don't agree with, in that I think what we saw from the week before with Saints, the difference that not having Momorowski as Hanley centre makes. And
yeah, just on that, did you listen to that podcast with Ash on the BBC?
No, I haven't.
It's really worth listening to. It kind of backs up what me and you have said quite a few times, that just how good he is, and it makes Ash look better.
Yeah.
And Ash says on the podcast, he's constantly talking to him, of telling him where to defend. And he says he's brought the best out of Ash as Momorowski.
So is it no coincidence that Momorowski's not been centre for Hanley and Hanley's not scored a try in the last 2 games?
It's why he hasn't scored.
Yeah.
I think people don't realise what a good centre can do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not like McDonald, is he? Where it's just making meters. He's a clever rugby league player, and I think we just need to get him back with Ash. But he might be out anyway because he had a leg brace on.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I saw it fall a couple of times. But I think my resulting thing is I understood why he did it, but I wouldn't have done it purely for that fact, really, to make sure Hanley's got his partner in crime, really, from that perspective. But that move then meant that Roberts was put on the interchange and he didn't come on.
It's just a waste.
So what's your go on then? What's your interpretation of that then, Sam?
It's against St Helens. They're a big side. They've bullied us down the middle for years. Why, if you've got options for forwards to put on the bench, and you put Roberts on there just in case, I just feel like it's a waste.
Okay.
You may as well have, even Ruan, who, he played well in the games that's not disrespectful to Ruan because he did well when he played, but give him the chance to have a go against Saints forwards, and that'll do him good long term. I just felt like it was if things don't go well, because I thought all our forwards actually had quite a quiet game, to be honest. They didn't get through much, so having that extra option to just say, go try do something, try make an impact, but we didn't have that option. It meant we were just predictable the whole game. Saints didn't really have too much to worry about.
Yeah.
They didn't even have out to think about, because it was just, well, we've dealt with these. They don't have what else to throw at us.
He got that wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a massive Rowan Smith fan, but he balls that up. I think I still think there's something going on with one of us backs not being 100%. And I've heard rumours that Croft's not 100%. So if that's the case, he should have put Edgell on the bench again. Because that's easier to shuffle around, because you can put Miller in the halves and then Edgell on. Don't get why Roberts was the wrong player to do that with.
Yeah.
If you've got an issue with a back somewhere, I think it should have been Edgell. So he totally got that wrong. I will say, if you'd have had Goodham on there, we'd have still lost.
Yeah, I mean, we were dominating on both sides of the ball. We had no possession, no territory.
Didn't play well.
But I do think we would have potentially had a better chance at winning.
Yeah.
If we'd have been able to have that extra sub in the middle rotating to give that extra freshness.
Totally got it wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally wrong.
So that's obviously the selection. Let's talk about that first half then. I actually thought for the first 30, 35 minutes, yes, we were getting dominated. Like, we barely saw the ball. There is no stats for the game, unfortunately. Actually, fortunately. So I was there with my clipboard. First half, plays of the ball on the opposition 20. I don't remember bloody one.
No, well, I was sat the opposite end of the south stand to where I'd usually be. And my neck was hurting because I was just looking down the other end.
Yeah.
And it was just non-stop Saints pressure, and well, other than that Harry Newman intercept, there was, we didn't really get the relief of looking down the other end.
I suppose in that respect, you could say we did defend well.
No, and this is the other point. For the first 30, yes, we were getting dominated. We didn't get the territory. We weren't getting the yards, but we looked quite secure on the line. And then just that moment of unfocus, if that's a word, I think I've made up a word there, but lack of focus for 1 second at marker, and it's cost us a try, and it's cost us going into half-time not in the lead. So my question is, if they don't concede at half-time and we go in 6-4 up, psychologically, how much of a difference does that make to the game for the Rhinos?
It makes a difference, but only a small difference, because the energy wasn't there anyway. It was a flat performance, and the only reason we were actually in that game is because of that intercept. I don't think the confidence was actually there that we were going to do any damage to Saints that night.
It was a brilliant intercept. I don't know if you've seen it play.
I forgot about this actually in terms of what my positives should have been, and the positives should have been Conrad Hurrell trying to chase down Harry Newman from the opposite side of the pitch. And I don't know if you've seen after
why bother, Connie?
He's tweeted at the after saying a couple of 20 more metres and I had you or something, but good effort, Conrad, but you were going to get nowhere near Newman.
Skipping back, it should have been in the positive, because the way he took it,
it was really well read, and I was right in line with Newman.
He tries it most weeks, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's always looking for it.
He saw it at Wigan, he did it twice at Wigan last year, didn't he?
Unfortunately, he does get caught out a few times as well, because he jumps the line and misses it. But when it comes off, it looks good, and it's just a weapon that we have where Newman might always pinch that ball and nick a try.
I don't know, he skipped round to
Edison.
Yeah,
it was brilliant.
Yeah,
but BBC missed that.
Yes,
it's been some bad feedback about that coverage.
It's been so horrendous.
Yeah. So I think we wouldn't have won even if we'd have gone in front. We were just too
my
flat.
question. Yeah, because I think for me psychologically to hold St Town all that pressure is fantastic, but then you've got to come out in the second half and do it. And Duncan sort of mentioned it last week. That period leading into half time and after, we haven't been good enough in his opinion, and that was proven a bit again. And that, I think for me, Newman's try should have been a momentum shifter, and we let that momentum go straight away back to Saints. We never really got hold. There was a couple of opportunities, especially in that first half, where I thought if we get hold of his momentum, we could go 2 tries ahead, but we never got that.
There was no, even with the halves. I mean, Croft was quiet. It might be because he's got this knock that you've just mentioned, and Frawley. The only two things I mentioned noticed him do was, drop a ball and then throw one. Was it Eledski or McDonnell? He just pinged one out.
Eledski,
I think when when your halves are playing the way they did on Friday, they didn't necessarily have the go forward from the pack.
No, it is difficult for the halves when you're getting
and you could see that with Saints, couldn't you? Because I thought Saints' ball movement again and I'm heading normally on the side of the south stand, but I was in the east stand, and because of that first half, I got to see a lot of Saints attacking structure because they were playing towards the east stand, and you could see their ball movement was so much better, but they had a far better platform. I'm going to talk about playing the ball later on.
That's without Lewis Dodd as well.
Yeah,
they made a change in their halves and it didn't.
Yeah, I thought Mbaye was quite. I think he's crap, Mbaye, but he actually was slotted in really well.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I listened to the pod last week, and when he came on, you thought he was. I thought that was something that changed the game. I thought he added a lot to him last week. It was really strange.
No, he did. He's proven me wrong, because I think he's crap, but he's obviously not.
Yeah.
I've just never seen him do anything, and last couple of weeks he has. He's, but it is a lot easier when you're on the front foot.
Yeah,
it's easy to look at Croft and Frawley and go, well, what did they do? Well, they were in their own 20 minutes mostly, and it's difficult kicking from that. I've seen a lot of criticism that we're not finding the floor with the kicks and stuff. To be honest, you watch any game, 80-90% of kicks do not find the floor when you're kicking from your own half.
No,
and actually, it's not a bad tactic to get it up in the air.
It gives you time for your chase to get involved.
But his chase wasn't very good.
No.
So
if you're good, depending on the type of kicker you do, you either if you're going to boot it up high in the air, you've got to have the chase to follow.
It was the week before, so it was. Again, it's just going back to it all being flat. That's fine. It is a good tactic, but you've got to chase it.
Yeah. I'm talking of kicking. Miller,
Yeah, he
seemed to have
did
taken
loads,
over
didn't he?
from, I think, kicks in general play. I don't remember. I mean, Frawley must have done 2 or 3, but from minute one, it felt like Miller had taken over that duty.
Well, I'm quite worried about this because when we signed Frawley, I was against it. I thought, he was bad at Huddersfield. Didn't think he'd done much since going back to the NRL. But the one thing people were saying was he's got a kicking game.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll improve our kicking game. And if after, was that the 6th game of the season?
Yeah.
6 games into the season, if he's gone, maybe somebody else needs to take over. If he's not commanding that ball.
I don't think it's that. I think it was a specific tactic for this game.
Because Miller had a better type of kick or that we wanted to do? Or?
I think it's because we played them the week before. So I think that they knew that Frawley would get all the kicks. So I think they tried to mix it up. Miller's got a good kicking game, actually. His infield kicks are quite good. But
Although we need to stop kicking this ball out on the bloody full every week, at least once a week.
I think it was a specific tactic for that game that, again, didn't work. So I think
there was a lot of that, wasn't there? Just not working.
I think because Croft kicked really well, actually. But it wasn't like Miller were taking over Frawley. They were all mixing it up. I think they've specifically gone to do that for some reason. Didn't work.
So going into half-time, then I think we were 10-6 down, was it, in the end? The second half, I've described it as a capitulation, and I'm not sure if that's probably too strong of a word now on reflection of it. I probably should have said at the start, this is probably more of a counselling session for everyone after the last 2 weeks. But I was hoping, again, we'd come out from the off, but at no point did I ever think that we were going to go ahead and take hold of that game.
I think capitulation's a bit strong because, actually, I've not watched it back, but from memory...
Why would you want to watch that back?
Well, exactly. I think from memory, the first 10-15 minutes, we did have quite a lot of possession near their line. And we did force a couple of dropouts.
Yeah, and we forced a dropout. I think there was Croft nearly got 40-20, didn't he, at one point? I think it was only like a couple of metres short.
Very close.
And, those little... If that 40-20 had been made, then maybe we could have made a difference.
I think 10-15 minutes, but I think did the score... after Batchelor dropped it and ended up kicking it? Or was that later on?
I think that was like we'd had some pressure and then they just went down the other end. And
you can tell we've not watched the game back any of us. Because
I'm sure that's what happened. We had loads of pressure, couldn't break them down. They went down to the other end of the field. Batchelor drops it, kicks it.
Was it not after Tommy Holroyd got sin-binned? That's when they scored the second.
Oh, that was one of the positives, actually, a big fight.
Yeah, it was a good scrap, actually, that, to be fair.
I thought that was later on.
I can't remember the timeline of it now. They definitely scored after that, though.
Did you see the post that Rhinos put up yesterday? It's just a bit off topic, by the way, but it was...
Good, take us on a tangent. I don't really want to talk about that. But
it was an American guy who was going into his first
this Ghost
game.
Hunter guy or whatever he was called.
He was really excited. It chose the worst game, by the way. If you want to go to a
game where there's 6,000 people there, we were shy, it were wet, but the only bit he's put on his story is the fight. He hasn't done anything about the rugby other than the fight.
He was very excited outside the ground, and then there was nothing to be excited about inside the ground, so I felt a bit bad.
So on that instant, actually, because it was a strange... Because, again, I was in the eastern, but on the other side of the pitch and that. But it looked like Bentley didn't make the catch or had knocked it on, and then was taken out after, which was the penalty I thought it should have been. Yeah. And then obviously Holroyd's taken exception to that, and I wouldn't argue with Holroyd, to be honest. If he did that, came at me. But then someone, is it Lomax?
It's Darryl. What happened was
tackled him out into the south stands.
Bentley got taken off the ball.
Yeah.
So it should have been a penalty. Well,
Bentley dropped it first, I think.
Yeah, so it's a 50-50 call, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't got an issue with Tom Holroyd running in. I think we need a bit more than that.
Exactly.
Rattle them a bit, and it's good to see them sticking up for each other. But Darryl Clark's was a proper shithouse move, if you watch it.
Yeah.
I think he might get a ban for that, because he hits him from behind, doesn't he? Smacks him straight into...
It's not a good look on that. I mean, from the footage, the footage is crap anyway, but from that angle that I've seen, it's not a good look from that perspective. So I can understand if that's what the referee's seen and that's what Darryl Clark's been sin-binned for, then that makes sense, to be fair.
It's calculated from a distance, isn't it? He's looked at him and thought...
It's a cheap shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a cheap shot.
He wanted to take him over that wall. That's what he wanted to do. And it's dangerous, and it's just a bit daft, really. So
on that then, I'll carry on this thing, because there was tons of comments about Kendall. I got a bit sick of him in the end because I actually don't think he got that much wrong. Some of the calls are 50-50. I'm just going to put it out there. We didn't lose because of Kendall.
No. And there's been a lot of chatter about Ron Smith blaming Kendall. He didn't. He didn't. It was asked a fishing question by a journalist, as usual, about the ruck. He should just keep his gob shut, but he didn't. Kendall was fine, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, I don't think there was many consensus. One of the ball steals was a ball steal, if you look back at it. One of them wasn't, but I don't think he changed the game. But I suppose in those moments there, Tommy Horror runs in, the penalty goes against us because of that, when in reality, if you look what Clark's done, it's probably a lot worse, because he's not only taken the ball out, I think it was him, is it him that took Bentley out? I don't know why Bentley was in that situation anyway, by the way. I thought Bentley was actually all right.
He was, but he should have caught that.
He should have caught that.
He'd have probably scored.
Yeah.
It was probably been Wellesby who took him out.
Probably.
It was Wellesby.
Yeah. Right, it was Wellesby, yeah. So, but that, that's what I mean. If we get that 42, it's some ifs or buts, but I still, if that had been a penalty to us, I'm not sure I still had the confidence in the performance that we saw that would turn that game around.
I think all season, we had Friday night, we had whatever it was, 10, 15, 20 minutes of pressure close to their line in that second half, and we didn't really look like scoring, but that's been the story of the whole season, really. We look good from 90 metres away, but put us close to a line we're not quite there yet, for whatever reason.
Yeah. It is Saints. I think people need to...
No, Saints are a good side.
Saints... I don't actually think they're a great attacking side, but I think they're the best defensive side in league, bar none, even better than Wigan.
I thought they moved the ball incredibly well, but whether that's because we were passive defence, I'm not sure.
They dealt with it though, didn't they?
They did.
It was nothing. They didn't do anything. It's not like Salford or even Lee.
Yeah,
when they make them shift plays, they're really difficult to defend against. They looked fairly comfortable against their shift plays. There was nothing.
So in that second half, then, did we fold, or was it just a bit of unlucky, or was it a bit of both? I don't know what you think, Sam.
I'm not sure we folded. I think it was just big. Again, it was flat, and then they get this try, and by that point, there's not enough energy within the Leeds team to actually go, we've still got this, and they're getting nothing from the crowd to, really G.
They're under the post with the Saints fans as well, aren't they?
Which is unusual for this year, because whether they play badly or well or whatever, they've always looked up for it, and you've always thought, yeah, they can pull a couple of tries out here. Against Saints both weeks, it's like, but it is because they're such a good defensive side. They're immaculate in that aspect of it.
I do think from the rugby that I've seen this year, there's a clear top two in Wigan. I mean, you would talk about this, weren't we? Yeah. In Wigan and Saints, and I think 3rd to 7th is a bit of any of those sides can beat each other on the day sort of thing.
There is, I think. The top three at the moment, is it Wigan, Saints and Warrington?
Yeah, I think so.
I've had an easier start than us.
I'm taking the Daniel Farker perspective of not looking at the table until maybe about 6 rounds before the end of the season.
It's pointless at the moment.
Exactly,
I think you're better off looking at who...
Yeah, look what happened to Leeds United, 7 points. I'd rather talk about Leeds United if we can.
I think, look at who they've played though. We've had a fairly tricky start.
Yeah, one of my mates sent me a message last week, just saying that I think it was all bar one team above us in the table at the moment have already played London, and without being disrespectful to London, teams are just getting 2 points off them at the moment.
And racking up a lot of, like Warrington have played Hull
and London,
and have they played Castleford?
Yeah.
So 3 out of the 5 games they've played the 3 worst sides.
Yeah, I suppose that means that when we play Cass next week, though, we then have to go and actually
not to go into that, because obviously you do that midweek, but it's different us playing Cass than another side playing Cass, isn't it?
It is, because Castleford was up for it. It happened last year, didn't it?
I've got it on the schedule, so we will go back to that, because there's a question I want to ask in relation to that game, which doesn't cover kind of covers in the weekly pod, but we'll cover it here. The bit that I picked up on you mentioned earlier, Chris, was about Rowan being asked about the ruck speed and the refereeing performance, and a thought entered my mind on Friday was, Rowan's batting on about the ruck speed now for probably about a year and a half, maybe goodness about 2 years potentially. In my head I'm going, if you start complaining about that long, then something else is the problem. And a part of me on this one is that I don't think we do enough effort to get off the floor.
Well, he did say that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He says we're going to have to start
but we
playing it. I think this one's a bit different, the rant that he had on Friday.
But this is a continuous rant before that. Is the problem elsewhere?
He's praised it, hasn't he? Recently. The rant on Friday was they've reverted back to how it was.
Yeah.
And in fairness, they have. It was. I'm not saying it's the ref's fault or anything, but the last 2 weeks they've been constantly offside at marker, no penalties, no 6 agains. We didn't get 1 6 again. They've been not playing the ball properly, so I can kind of get what he's run. It's a bit different to what he's like. Why have they gone back?
It happens every year with every rule change or every clampdown.
But I suppose control your controllables, control what's in there, and I think that Leeds control. I mean, Sam, I'll ask you this question: are we doing enough to make the ball quicker? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, when you've got a player like Andy Ackers who was so good at that at Salford, just quick play of the balls, he'd make 20 yards or even just actually set up a try. If he's not getting that much, I'm not saying he's not done it a few times for us, but if he's not doing it that often, then it's probably he doesn't have it to work with, which would suggest that whoever our forwards mainly aren't quite making sure they're putting in the effort. That even if they've got 2 tacklers on them, just get up, make it clear to the ref that they're pinning you down, and just get on with it.
Yeah. I think you've got to put the referee into making a decision, and you force him, and whilst keeping hold of the ball, because I think if you start flapping around too much, the ball comes loose a bit too easy. But force a referee decision, try get up fast and play the ball, because when you have seen Ackers get that quick ball, you can see the pace speed up quite quickly, and that might be explaining a bit of the structure in attack, why it's been slow, why we haven't been making yards, why Frawley might be seen as a bit of a passing merchant, because they haven't had that front foot ball to be able to do anything with it.
And has it pissed it down at every game so far this year?
Pretty much.
I can't believe I got soaked to the wall back to the car. Were you drenched?
I'm not going down the route of blaming the weather, but the crap conditions out there.
It's not ideal.
So it does affect the ruck speed, does that?
I mean, I know you lived in Australia, and Sam, we are in Yorkshire. It doesn't really matter what month of the bloody year it is.
That's kind of what I'm saying. They should adapt.
Yeah, we can't keep waiting for these dry pitches to have a good performance.
We said that last year as well, though. Once the pitch is dry, it'll be all right, and we were never all right. We've got better players this year, so maybe it will be.
I don't think it's particularly the pitches being dry. I think it's just because it's dreary. The whole thing's a bit dreary.
It's nothing new, though, is it?
No, that's what I'm saying. They should adapt to it.
Yeah,
they should adapt better to it. They need to, and he did say this is Rowan. We're going to have to change. They're almost playing too nice, aren't they? And just
too honest, do you think?
Yeah, like we're getting off too quick and letting them play the ball too quick.
Yeah,
we've been too. Saints and other good teams are playing the system better, and we've never been good at that.
Yeah,
we were years ago, but I think it's because he wants to play this attractive style of rugby that it's.
I think we're going to have to change. They've got to take it under their own control now.
Yeah,
if you agree, Sam.
No, definitely. It's the same thing will just keep happening. It'll be we won't get the decisions we want. The same questions will get asked to Rowan after the game, and it'll just be an endless loop, really. So if the rules aren't changing or the games aren't being officiated in a way that suits you, make it suit you. Do what you can to take advantage of what's there to you.
The flip side to that, though, is we will end up getting more 6 agains against us.
Yeah.
And
we had a load of penalties against us anyway.
And people will have to accept that. If you're going to start trying to play the system a bit more, you're going to get penalised.
Yeah, you can't get the rough without the smooth.
No.
But I do think there's an element of we need to take control of that ruck now. We're not controlling it, whether that is the meters we make, how hard we're running in, the opportunities we're creating, but we have to.
It's worth trying it. We might get penalised more, but it's worth trying it just to see if it improves us in other areas and makes us that bit more competitive in areas. So.
But it's also a symptom of not being on top of the game.
Yeah.
So we've been dominated last 2 weeks. you're not going to get the ruck speed because you're not dominating, are you? There's been a couple of flashes this year where we have dominated, and the speed.
Lee away, wasn't it?
You can see what we're doing. Even against OKR when we lost the first half.
Yeah,
the speed of we would,
and it rained that day as well.
Yeah, it was, and the pitch was horrible, wasn't it? So I can see what they're trying to do with this, and once it clicks, it works. But it's not always going to be that way, is it? We're going to have to learn to grind a win out.
Yeah.
Just having a little bit more structure, I think. I know we want to play this style of rugby where it's a bit off the cuff and chaotic almost, but if it's not working, just have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And just let your halves take a bit more control. And again, forwards have to do the bit for that. But,
and I think that kind of links back again to that bench choice again for me. Against those sides that are bigger, that we know they're strong at the middle, and that's why that. And I know we said that's not the reason why we lost, and it isn't. But I do think it's a significant contributor.
Saints are a weird side when you look at them, though. They're like a team of second rowers. Fast. They're a weird side, aren't they? Like you look at them. Apart from the wingers, maybe.
But I noticed that when they carry out from deep, a fullback or wing do the first carry, but it's a second rower or that's making those next carries. It helps when you got Matauti here. He's massive, by the way.
Big side, aren't they?
Do you think that's something that we need to change, Sam? In that when we tend to do our carries out from deep, especially, it's normally Hanley or Miller will take it in, then it's Hanley, then it's Momirovski or Newman. Does it need to be Aletsky? Does it need to be Reece Martin a bit more? Does it need to? I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying, Chris. A lot of their side generally are bigger people than they had, but we had 3 second rows in a pitch as much the same as they did. So are we weaker because of is that not helping us when we're carrying out from deep?
Maybe. I mean, when you're carrying out from deep, you want your biggest players sort of taking the ball in anyway, don't you? I suppose the way we want to play as well, where we're trying to move the ball on his own 20. We may as well have the pacey players, actually in a position to do it, and have you,
which is when we scored them.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? Fussy Tua will make a big difference in that.
Yeah, he will. And I think when I say this, I think Hanley always carries really strong. Like, he's always someone that will make at least 8 or 10 metres. I mean, a bit like Nenny McDonald last year, he was guaranteed to always make metres. Fussy will be that. I do think we miss his strength.
Yeah, and we're a different side to Saints. Like, our second row is a different type of players. Like, Bentley's a grafter, isn't he, and a nuisance, which is, I think it's great, but he's not a direct forward.
No.
Like, Saints will get the ball, won't they, and just run fast and hard.
There was a point in 2022 though when Bentley was hitting those lines and he was making the breaks. So
he's more flair though than brute force, isn't he? Compared to like your Syrians or your.
He's not a direct running second rower, is he?
No.
Martin can do that, and he did a few times. I know he was playing centre, but he did a few times on Friday. McDonald I think he's having a poor season actually, McDonald, which is a shame. Gannon's more of a hard. He hits good lines, doesn't he? And he's a hard running second rower.
The problem with what we're saying here though is Fussy Tua, you can't rely on him. Gannon has unfortunately Gannon just gets head knocks and puts his head in the wrong place or whatever it is. So we can't actually rely on these guys to come back and make the difference.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking these questions is what do they need to be doing to get that quick play of the ball? Because I think it's about getting off the floor quicker, but it's also about winning the contact. It's Eddie always takes the piss out of me about liking Holroyd because I like the fact he drives his leg when he goes into contact.
Sangari's doing a bit more of that.
Yeah.
I also think we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We could have next 3 weeks. We could play some amazing rugby like we want to play. Get the ruck speed, and the problem we've got is we've had 2 defeats against St Helens in a row.
This is similar to what I said to you yesterday. And you asked me a question about Rowe, and I said now's not the time to be making any judgments because you could play really well against Saints 2 weeks in a row and still lose because that's what Saints do.
Yeah, and it just so happens we had a shocker on Friday and. That's it. It's all when
Rowan out brigade in full force.
Let's be honest about it. We're 5 games into the season. We've had 5 pretty tough games. Next 3 or 4 games, if we play really well.
Yeah.
It's forgotten about, isn't it, last Friday? So it's... I don't think we need to talk as if there's some existential crisis in the team that needs...
I wouldn't say there's an existential crisis, but if I asked you, Sam, particularly first, is Rowan under more pressure as things stand at the moment than maybe at the beginning of the season?
I think so, but that's because if you compare it to last season, he doesn't have that luxury of he's just got us to a grand final and people think he might be the second coming. After last season, and a lot of money's been spent, is the team and I suppose the coaching setup now is more of what he wants. There's more of an expectation that this should be going well. And I know we're still early in the season, and I know that this is the first season where he's had everything the way he wants, so in a way you've actually got to give him a little bit more time, but he's not going to get that because of the way, not from fans anyway.
It's Leeds, come on. Every loss.
I'm bringing this structured debate to the table because I know there'll be people who listen to this podcast that don't want Rowan Smith there.
We could win 10 games in a row.
Yeah.
Lose one, and that's it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, and I get it because all fans are like that.
It's emotion, isn't it? It's emotive. People want to turn up to a game and see us win.
But let's give it a bit of time, lads.
Okay. I think the manner of the way we lost on Friday was probably the biggest concern, because after last week, people were saying, "Oh well, as long as we win next week," and you're expecting the team after losing that first one that they'd turn up and be going, "Right, got to do this differently. We will do this differently, and this is how we beat them." Yeah. Just none of it. You think,
I think everyone was hoping to see a reaction, and I think that it's. Look, we most of us, the majority of us, in fact, all of us, shouldn't and do not like Saints, and worst of all, we hate losing to Saints. And losing back to back against Saints does hit hard. And absolutely,
it's not all on the coach neither. It's some of the players have got to.
Yeah,
they're the ones out there, aren't they?
Yeah,
and if they're not putting the effort in, then they've got to be accountable as well. It's hard.
And they can control their performance on the ground in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the disappointment comes from, because we don't want to lose to Saints twice. We've been knocked out of the cup for the first time 3 times in a row. We've now lost 4 games in a row since we won the bloody thing in 2020. I wanted a cup run this year. Like, I really, as much as people were excited to go to the game, and it wasn't that great on Friday in terms of atmosphere, I wanted to be. Although I don't think I can go to the final actually, so it might be a blessing.
I wouldn't have minded. I wouldn't have minded a cup run, but as soon as we got St Helens, I'm like,
you got to beat the bigger teams to win it, haven't you?
Yeah, you do, but it's. It is St Helens.
Imagine if we'd have been 12-all at half-time against
Batley or Sheffield
Eagles. Imagine the meltdown.
Yeah, God Christ. So we've talked a lot about Rowan. So let's switch to the players then and try and find a bit of a positive before we go into the player ratings, because that's not very positive. Any players that stood out for you, Sam, if you can find anything?
From Friday?
Yeah.
Honestly, no.
I'm not asking to say that people that were 8 out of 10. I mean, I personally thought Bentley probably was one of the better players of the night. I thought Ackers was probably one of the better players on the night.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few players who put in effort. You can't question the effort, but I think that's kind of what you expect sometimes. Just if it's not going well, put in the effort. So I'm not going to sit here and pray. Pick people out for
that's fine.
for putting in some effort. I don't think there was actually one that I thought you had a good game or you made a difference. And normally there's at least one you can pick out. Yeah. Maybe I'm being harsh, but
this is why we have 2 people on to get contrasting opinion potentially.
I don't think you're being harsh. I think you're being right, because for all that some players did some good stuff, they countered it with some crap stuff. Like my favourite, Miller, I thought he did some really good stuff. He also did some really poor stuff.
Yeah.
But you're going to get that with Miller anyway.
Yeah,
to be fair,
you are going to get that.
But I liked it when he took that quick tap.
Yeah, I love that actually. I really liked that.
Bit different, that one.
Some of his
because Frawley only kicks about 10 metres on a penalty kick. It's an absolute pet hate of mine. Like, I think they did one in the first half, maybe in the second. The first half, and they booted a penalty for about 50 metres forward. Like, why are we not doing this? Like, I hate it when we only make 10 metres off a penalty kick. Like,
I was wondering if it Salford where he. First game of the season where he took a penalty kick and it was like he didn't find touch in his first kick. I wonder if that sort of
knocked him a bit,
like a little mental block for him. So
but I did like Lucky's go. Actually, they're retreating, thinking we're going to get a kick, so I'll just get the 20 metres now. But then we didn't make any more metres after that.
There was a point where he got it and he was going to get trapped in his in goal, and he got out.
Yes, that was right in the corner with me. That was good. Yeah.
His defensive positioning is actually really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think he kind of lost his head a bit, did Miller?
Summed up by that short kick-off.
Well, he absolutely belted it, didn't he? And it's like,
but we've seen that. I think we've seen that. Definitely seen that 2 weeks in a row. I think Miller's done another one as well this season where the kick's gone out on the full. It's almost. It's just well, you know, when we were at Leeds, all the players got around to each other, just took those deep breaths in together. Just have that moment before you take that kick, because giving them a penalty on the 50-metre line is such a momentum shifter, whether we've scored or they've scored or whatever. But they've scored because we're kicking
in fairness to him, it's one of those plays that if you get right. Are you talking about the short one? The one where he kicked it really hard and low?
Yeah. There was that one, but he's also kicked some out on the full deep as well.
Yeah,
or to the touchline. He's done a short touch into the touch, he's done a long into the touch, and I think he's kicked one over the dead goal. It's such a cheap penalty to give away. Yeah,
the one that he did over the dead ball line, in goal line, was last week after Saints had scored that first one.
Yeah.
And that was, if that hadn't have happened, maybe we can control what happens after a bit more.
So that's what I'm saying. I know you've got to take the rough with the smooth of it, but I think that's just too silly of a mistake to make.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah. Miller had a good game, but he also had some shockers.
Yeah.
I think with Miller, he's going to be one of them players where if things aren't going well for us and we're not winning, he's going to get a lot of the stick because he's putting in loads of effort, but at times it can come across a little bit desperate.
He looked frustrated on Friday to me. Like he was waving his arms on it. He was waving. But you could even say that's quite a good thing that he is frustrated.
Yeah, he's
trying to care, and it's rather than just give it up.
You'd rather have that.
The problem with Miller is he does stuff different, doesn't he? And it will always come off. So it's like great. So I think what I'm trying to say is you could pick some players out that did some good stuff, but they were all countered by some bad stuff as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay.
So I ain't got a player of the match. Is that what you're going to come?
No. Well, we're going to have to choose one at some point. We are going to come on to the player ratings. Chris, I'd just like you to say your catchphrase now, so you don't have to say it for each one.
Too low.
Thank you. Right. So
I might agree with you.
You might shock me. I don't think you will.
I filled this in, by the way, and I wasn't generous.
Well, you're not. I think I was overly generous, but I asked people. I think I said, I hope everyone's calmed down, and then someone replied to me saying, "How can we be calm? We were crap." But anyway, and that was this morning, so that was not a day and a half later. So Miller 4.9, Momorowski 4.3. Newman was the highest with 5.9. Obviously his try elevates that, I think. Yeah. Martin 5.5, Hanley 5.4, Croft 5, Frawley 2.9.
Yep, absolutely fine. Fine by me.
Actually, they're higher than I thought.
Oh, I've not finished it.
Well, all right.
Yeah, Alexi 5.5, Akers 4.4, Sangare 4.1, McDonald 4.7, Bentley 5, Smith of the Cameron variety 4.4, Holroyd 4.8. That should be higher because he protected his mate. Lasone 4.4 and Jared 4.0. So I'm going to come to Rowan in a second. Players wise.
All I'll say about the Frawley thing is he wasn't that worse than any of the others that he gets 2 and they get 5.
Yeah, he wasn't, but he was just, you're wanting some control and there was none of it. You're wanting somebody to stand up and start, guiding the team around, and you look to your 7 to do that. And he, well, as we've discussed, he wasn't even kicking the ball, but maybe it was a game plan, but
maybe
it just offered nothing. So
it's been very difficult to talk about players and stuff because we haven't had really a lot to talk about. It has been focused more on Rowan because of the decisions in the team sheet and in terms of the game and how he played. Do you want to take a rough guess at what you thought Rowan's score out of 10 was?
2.3.
I don't think it'll be that high.
No, you think it'll be lower than 2.3? Yeah. 2.5.
Oh, close.
So that is his lowest of the season so far. So
I don't think he'll ever get above a 5.
He's got above a 5 this year.
Never.
Twice.
6 then.
He's got above a 6 twice.
Never.
We have won 3 games. So think about when he's got more than 6 is when we've won games.
Yeah. I'm surprised.
So, player of the match in terms of the ratings, Newman gets the highest rating. It's not even one I mentioned that potentially that played well. We are choosing a player of the match, gentlemen. I am forcing you to nominate someone because I have to, because I'm collating them all for the season, for the end of the season awards, so I need one. Sam?
I'm going to go with them and say Newman. Just because of that step that he did when he scored.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm going Lockie Miller for throwing that vape back at a Saints fan. That was the best action.
Pot kettle black, absolutely. Lachy Miller, the man of the player of the match for the Lot Pod, for simply throwing back the vape. He's just giving it back at the end of the day. Anything else we want to cover, gents, before I ask one final question?
Can I just mention Batley again?
You can do. Chris is now a Batley fan. He's no longer on the podcast.
It kind of ties in with who we're playing on Thursday anyway.
The worst team of the two.
Yeah, the best thing I've seen all weekend was Paul McShane taking a drop out from his own sticks and it landing behind him in the in-goal area.
Because of the wind?
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's the best thing I've seen.
That's rugby league.
Yeah. That's quite an effort.
Everyone were like, wow.
That is rugby league. So I'm going to bring my question back to Leeds Rhinos because it's a Leeds Rhinos podcast producer, Chris.
Not a Batley one.
If you were going to change one thing, or do you think if Roman's going to change one thing ahead of Cass on Thursday, Sam, what should that be?
This is just because I don't like him personally, but put anyone in for Sangare because I don't see what he does.
Okay. So Holroyd then, is that a shout for Holroyd to start?
Start Holroyd.
Probably banned now, won't he, for doing something, but anyway.
Yeah. Start Holroyd if he's available and put another forward on the bench, because if somebody can tell me what Sangare has done since about round 3 last year, I'd be impressed, because you mentioned before he started leg driving. He did it once against Saints last week, didn't do it again. He did it once against Hull KR however many weeks ago.
No, he needs to do it every time.
Didn't do it again. I always think it's like, like teaching a school kid to do something and then they finally do it, but then they stop immediately. Or it's like teaching a kid to play rugby. It's like he doesn't have some of the basic understandings and he'll go, oh, right, I get it. He does it and then goes, I've done it now, I don't need to do it again. That's how I feel about Sangare, and I just think he's got so much. I think actually a spell away on Joel Reg or something to do him some good, because I just don't know what he does.
So you're changing up the pack effect is what your one thing going to be, and making sure we've got that support on the bench is your one thing. Chris?
One thing.
One thing. Well, I'm going to try and limit you to one. I know you'll go. I know you'll take me further than one, but
all I'll say is we're not playing Saints on Thursday, so it's a different. Having seen Cass close up,
but Cass could have the worst team in the entire world, and you've said it now, like as Sam said, but they will be up for Thursday. Yeah, so we can't afford to take it.
No,
lightly.
but what I'm trying to say to you is they're nowhere near the size of Saints.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're not a big side at Cass. Even they're playing West Ham prop. That's where they're at. So I'm not overly bothered about
in a scrum, would you?
I'm not overly bothered about getting a massive pack, really. But one thing
you'd change, one thing you'd go and do.
If Momorowski's fit, back with Ash, and I know he's not everyone's favourite, but just put Roberts back on the other side. Is that one thing?
Yeah,
it's not two things in one.
No, that's one thing. That's one move. Yeah,
yeah. I'm not overly concerned about the bench and whatever goes on there.
Yeah,
this week.
Yeah. My one thing is to do both of the things that you just suggested, which is cheating. Yeah. But I absolutely agree. I do think I want to see Holroyd starting. For me, he's number 10. He's a starting prop. He's come back from injury. He's had game time now. Holroyd is a very good player, and I think he needs to be starting with Walensky.
I think what I'm saying is that Cass aren't this big side, so I think we can. I think they put Sangare in there because he's a big body, isn't he?
Yeah.
Whether he uses that correctly or not,
he doesn't come across as well.
So I think it's time to put the two starting.
I agree, and I think you're right. I think get Momorowski back with Ash. Especially I need to listen to that podcast now. You mentioned it, but I think we've seen the difference even in Ash's performances because Momorowski isn't there. Yeah. So let's get that partnership back up and running as long as Momorowski's fit. Because I have heard rumours he walked out on a boot.
It's not always as bad as the scene. No. So it's precautionary a lot of time.
Let's hope it's not.
Maybe he might not risk him.
He was hobbling when he came out after half time.
Yeah. He had a couple of knocks on his leg, to be fair. He did one first and one right at the very end, I think on the second to last tackle.
He's one of those players, though, isn't he? I think if you look at his NRL record, he probably missed 1 in 6, 1 in 8, something like it. He was out quite regularly.
Sounds like
at least it's not his shoulder, which is what he had.
Which he was off with.
That'd be worrying, wouldn't it? But, that's what I do.
Perfect. Sam, Chris, thanks for joining us as always. Everyone, thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers and we need your help and support for that. To make sure you don't miss anything on YouTube, give that notification bell a click. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify rather, or Google, however you listen to it, please make sure you're rating us 5-star reviews only allowed. And thank you for your continued engagement. We'll be back midweek for the weekly roundup to preview the game against Cass. Thanks very much.